Yo, what's going on YouTube? This your boy Kamen Zero Spike back again once again. And today, people, today we're here for Ohsama Sentai King-Ohger episode 43. And in this episode, we got the big reveal. We got a lot of backstory. And with that being said, let's get into it. And in this episode, we see that Draculus is on trial, and he's basically on trial to basically talk about everything, the whole plan, the whole backstory on how his whole thing was supposed to go down. He explains the origin of Gira, and he explains that his family for the last 2,000 years has been in service to the galactic insects, aka, you know, our galactic insect evil MFs, and King Dugdat. And we see how when he explains it, he talks about how Gira was born. Now we go back to the basically, it kind of range. We see how Gira was born, and we see that Gira was just Dugdat just pulled a Whis. He just pulled a Whis where he made Gira, and he made their mom basically just get pregnant after, you know, King Castus, who is, you know, their father. King Castus basically asked Dugdat, we want to serve you like more efficiently, so we request that you give us more power. So he basically shot his power off. It's gonna sound weird when I say this, but he shot his power off inside of Gita's mom, Gira and Draculus's mom, and she was pregnant with Gira. His father basically called him a miracle child, and after Gira was born, their mother passed away. And we see that we also got the big reveal of how Gira can talk to Shoe Gods. We see that the jello that Gira used to eat all the time at the orphanage, turns out it is is Kiwada's soul. It's Kiwada's soul, and that's how Kiwada has been with him forever, and that's how he's able to talk to the Shoe Gods and things like that. And people were already speculating this to be the case anyway. I didn't think this freaking jello would come back and have this much of a significance to the whole like plot thing. But yeah, we also see that the galactic insects are trying to figure out, like, well, basically the rest of the jesters are trying to figure out what they're going to do now that Dugdat is dead. And that's when Minungun, the big one, Minungun is basically in charge now of all the jesters, and he basically gets up and he starts speaking clearly, and he says that, oh, it's time for me to reign chaos and whatever. So they end up the rest of them started giving him power, like they're charging up for a spirit bomb, and he goes into the city and says, hey, I'm going to cause chaos. So we go back to the rest of it. We go back to the rest of our rangers basically in the trial with Draculus, and he explains that his father told him the truth. His father started to explain to him the truth about what Gira is, and he wanted Draculus to use Gira as a tool and basically train him up and raise him up and use him as a tool to defeat the galactic insects. But Draculus didn't want to do that. Draculus loved Gira. He didn't want to do that to him. He always considered Gira his one and only little brother. But you see that King Castus is sick. King Castus is very sick, and he's at a point where he's coughing up blood. So when you get to that point in life, yeah, it ain't much that can save you, my friend. Eternal bleeding sucks. So he basically says that, you know, you have to use him as a tool and things like that. And we see that Gira has Gira's kind of like a blank slate. Like he really doesn't have like he has a kid personality, but he also has moments where he like lashes out, and he ends up trying to, you know, kill Draculus and the king. And he says stuff like, I'm gonna conquer the world and stuff. Like, he lashes out and gets angry and things like that, and that's basically just a part of Dugdat that's inside of him. So he tells him, you know, he has to do this to protect our family and protect the people and stuff. But then Draculus is like, no, I'm not doing that, and Gira is Gira, and he runs off with Gira. And then that's when we see Kamen and Gidori or Gordy, they end up attacking the king, and they ended up. We see the king. He ends up transforming. He ends up transforming into Rakulis's form. King-Ohger transforms into Rakulis's form, but we see he even has Rakulis's sword, and we end up seeing that he's when he coughs up this blood. When he coughs up blood, some of his blood ends up getting on the sword, and his sword absorbs the blood, which is giving him the power to hurt the jesters and things. But he gets in a fight with him and Kamen, with Gordy and Kamen, but he does die. He does end up dying. We end up seeing that Bushmere was with Gira. See that Gira was he was having a really, really bad headache and things like that, and we see that Bushmere tries to help him, but then one of the guards comes up and says hey, can I help you? And Bushmere immediately recognizes that this guy isn't what he seems to be. Turns out this guy is Kamen in disguise, and that's why we see how Bushmere died, because he tries to fight Kamen, but we don't see it. We just know that Bushmere is dead, and he ends up impersonating Bushmere going with Gordy to fight the king, and then the king also ends up passing away as well. So we go back to the present day with Rakulis telling Rita what's going on, but then that's when Gira gets a call on his phone with his super metal orchestral ringtone, and he gets a call from Duga, and Duga tells him that he's speaking kind of weirdly, and they go back to the city, they go back to Shogunam and see that everybody's ages have been altered. People's ages have been altered. Old people get turned into older people. Some people get turned into babies. People get turned into teenagers. It's all messed up. So all of our Sentai except Rita, they end up going to Shogunam to see what's going on. We see that Monongan is there, and Monongan ends up using his warping powers to warp time and space, and he is up turning all of our rangers into kids. And I really thought that that kid thing was gonna be a whole plot point, like the whole episode. I really thought that was gonna happen, but they have a quick solution to that. So they end up getting turned back into kids, and it turns out Daboski doesn't turn into a kid. He really just he turns into his younger self, in the flashbacks. But turns out that's him at 10 years old. Eat your greens, kids. So they all end up turning into kids, but we see that Daboski's the most mature one out of all of them, and we see that everybody turns into kids, and they all start just being kids. Their minds also regress, and they turn back into and they start acting like kids, and they end up we see that Daboski ends up getting up to transform. They're still able to transform. When they transform, they're all weirded out about it. They're still acting like kids, and then we see that Gira ends up slashing Monongan, because he has the power in his sword to do his sword to hurt them, or hurt the jesters. But then also we find out in this episode that Yanma ends up replicating the power to hurt the jesters and put it in everybody else's sword. And I was like, okay, that's something. That's something that Yanma could do. But I do understand that we have to, everybody's these jesters are strong, and we couldn't just leave it up to Gira. Oh, excuse me. We couldn't just leave it up to Gira and Rakulis. So everybody's gotta get stronger, stat. So it makes sense that Yama was able to do that. So they all are able to hurt the jesters now. So Gira ends up slashing Monongan, and he ends up turning back into his his 20 adult self, his regular self, and he tries to tell everybody that, hey guys, if you slash him, if you hurt him, you'll be able to turn. But he ends up getting this massive headache. When he starts getting this massive headache, he sees that a lot of his memories actually start to come back to him. So we flash back to we go back to Rakulis telling more of the story. We see that the king has finally passed away, and then that's when the fury of the gods is also happening. We see that Dugdad is talking to Kid Rakulis and tells him that this is your decree, now you can become the king now. And that's when you know, Reckless basically takes his dad's advice and basically, you know, makes himself into what made himself into what he is, and he swore allegiance to Duck Dad, swore allegiance to him, and that's everything. And after that, he ends up sending Kid Gira into an orphanage, to a local orphanage, so no one can like find him. And yeah, that's how Gira got into the orphanage and things. Like, he was trying to protect Gira because he didn't want to use Gira the way his father wanted him to use him. And he also he told Rita that Rita basically does her verdict. She said, hey, your penalty is death, but Reckless wanted one thing. He wanted erase everything from history. Like, I don't want people knowing that I did all this, and I still want to go down. I should go down as the worst king in history. So he doesn't want to get rid of the records of anything that like happened. So we go back to our Rangers, and we kind of get like a jump, and they all have gotten their regular ages back again. And when they get their regular ages back again, they end up fighting Manungun and slashing him. And when they slash him, you see that he starts to open up, like he starts to like open up. And when he opens up, that's when Duck Dad crawls out of him, and he's weird because he comes out and says, "Daddy's back." I'm like, ugh, that's kind of nasty. And yeah, and also Manungun is perfectly fine. Like, he wakes up, but his mind also regresses, I guess, back to a child, because he assumes when he gets up, he starts making baby noises. But yeah, he tells them that, hey, it sucks to be you guys, and guess what? It's gonna get way worse from here on out, so you better get ready for it. And he's like giant too. He's like giant, looking down at them, talking mess. I'm like, bro, like, this guy's dick, man. But we all knew that. We all know that Doug Dad's a freaking a-hole. But after that, they end up going back to with Rita, where she gives a verdict on Reckless, and they basically tell Reckless that no, you're not gonna die. You're gonna serve us. We're gonna use you for whatever we want to use you for, and you're basically your redemption starts now. Like, we're gonna change you, and think like we're gonna make you like work for us. And we see that Reckless is down. He's like, all right, cool, I'll offer myself for the people. Whatever I gotta do, I'll do it. And that's when we get like the cool like brother, him and Gira actually like hug. I thought they were gonna hug, but they end up showing like, you know, the part, you know, them hugging as kids, but them as adults like holding hands, and get us like, I finally reached you, I got you. And he's like, yeah, the episode ends off right there. I think the next episode seems like it's gonna be like a montage, or like a clip montage of them, like, you know, using Reckless for all these different things. We see him in a cage at one point. Like, you're gonna have your boy probably doing some embarrassing things, because the Kings are like, well, excluding Jeremy and maybe excluding Gira and maybe Jeremy, but the rest of the Kings, they're probably gonna make him do like some really embarrassing like things. So it's gonna be weird, but at the same time, we got a lot of lore and plot into this. But because of that, I also was thinking, like, how can the King transform into King-Ohger? Like, how can he transform into that if that's like something that like Yanma made? Because Yanma learned a lot of his stuff from Gin, but then Gin learned a lot of that stuff from Jeremy. So how was he able to transform into that? I was probably thinking that he could probably transform into, maybe he could probably still transform, but I probably think he'll transform into something else. Maybe like the weird form that was from the movie. Maybe he could transform into that, but like him transforming into King-Ohger kind of doesn't make sense. But other than that, like and there's a lot. Also, there's like some contradictions into this. But man, we could have had that. Like, he could have transformed into that, but we didn't. We didn't get that. So, but other than that, this episode was pretty good. We got Doug Dad is back, and we see that he now can use the jesters as vessels. You know, we kind of saw something weird going on with Monongon anyway, because he had like a bunch of like, you know, he seemed like he was a cocoon. He kind of looks like a cocoon. So him having Doug Dad inside of him, cause we all knew that Doug Dad wasn't dead. Not from that. You know, when they fight him, it's supposed to be a big climactic mega battle, because this guy's omnipotent, uber broken character. So, you know, it's still kind of weird. But we see that Yamba also with the whole thing of like putting like that, having like upgrading everybody's weapons. He could also put that inside the shoe gods, like, to where like when they do have the you know, the mech fight portion of fighting Doug Dad, you know, have that inside of the, you know, the shoe gods as well, so they got the power to hurt them, you know. And the whole thing with Gira having Kiwata's soul, I mean, I was really hoping they were gonna really touch on that, but I didn't think it was inside the Jello. I mean, is that the white parts of the Jello? Is that the sugar? Is the sugar soul? Like, I wanna know how they even did that. Like, but he's been eating that Jello for a long time too. He eating it ever since he was a kid. We saw him eating it in the first few episodes when he was in the orphanage. But yeah, dog. Like, and also, didn't anybody like recognize him? Like, didn't anybody recognize him in the orphanage? Like, didn't they know that was the, you know, that was the prince? I feel like, because, you know, not many, the king was like, don't let anybody know that I have a second son, you know, in the outside the castle. No, I have a second son. I don't know, because wasn't he like out and about sometimes? Like, I feel like some people would have recognized, some people would have knew that was Gira. But that's neither here nor there. I'm nitpicking. But other than that, you guys let me know down in the comment section below what you guys think of this episode of Ohsama Sentai King-Ohger. Make sure to like, share, subscribe, hit that notification bell, and I'm gonna see you guys next time. And remember, stay Kenshin.